In 2016, Formula One had a serious problem. Viewership was falling. Young fans weren't interested, and many people believed the sport was slowly dying. But just a few years later, Formula One would become one of the fastest growing sports in the world, selling out races, breaking viewership records, and turning its drivers into global celebrities. So the question is, how did a sport that was losing relevance suddenly become the coolest sport on the planet? To understand how Formula One became so popular, you have to go back just a few years, because in the mid-2000s, the sport was struggling. TV audiences were slowly declining. The average fan was getting older, and outside of race weekends, Formula One barely existed online. There was almost no presence on social media. Drivers were tightly controlled by their teams, and fans rarely got to see what actually happened behind the scenes. In fact, the man running Formula One at the time believed young fans simply didn't matter. That man was Bernie Ecclestone. And according to him, young people didn't buy luxury watches, which meant they weren't the audience Formula One was trying to attract. For years, this strategy worked. But by the mid-2000s, the cracks were starting to show. To understand how Formula One became so popular, you have to go back just a few years. Because in the mid-2000s, the sport was struggling. TV audiences were slowly declining. The average fan was getting older, and outside of race weekends, Formula One barely existed online. Drivers were tightly controlled by their teams. Interviews were short. Personalities were hidden. Fans rarely got to see what actually happened behind the scenes. And that was a problem. Because sports were changing. Fans didn't just want races anymore. They wanted stories. They wanted rivalries. They wanted personalities. But Formula One still felt distant, almost like a private club. Then in 2017, everything changed. That year, Formula One was sold to a media company called Liberty Media. Unlike the previous leadership, they didn't just see Formula One as a racing series. They saw it as entertainment. One of the first things they did was embrace the internet. Drivers became active on social media. Teams started showing more behind the scenes, and fans finally began seeing the personalities behind the helmets. But the biggest change was still coming. Because around the same time, a documentary series was being developed, one that would follow Formula One teams throughout the season. In 2019, Netflix released the first season of Drive to Survive. At first, many people inside Formula One were skeptical. Some teams even refused to take part. But something unexpected happened. People who had never watched Formula One before became completely hooked. Because the show didn't just focus on racing, it focused on drama, team rivalries, driver personalities, the pressure inside the paddock. For the first time, fans felt like they actually knew the drivers. People began following names like Daniel Ricciardo, Lando Norris, and Max Verstappen. Once fans cared about the drivers, they started caring about the races, and the effect was huge. Within just a few years, Formula One's popularity exploded. Grand Prix events began selling out. Social media engagement skyrocketed, and millions of new fans started watching every race weekend. But nowhere was the growth bigger than in the United States. For decades, Formula One had struggled to break into the American market. Most fans preferred NASCAR or IndyCar, but after Drive to Survive, millions of Americans suddenly discovered the sport. Demand grew so quickly that Formula One began adding more races in the country, including one of the most ambitious events in the sport's history, the Las Vegas Grand Prix, a night race held directly on the Las Vegas Strip. Formula One had transformed. What was once seen as a niche European sport had become a global spectacle. But that success raises an interesting question. Can Formula One keep this momentum going? Or will the hype eventually fade? Because if there's one thing sports history has shown, it's that popularity can rise very quickly, but keeping it there is much harder. For now, though, Formula One seems to have figured something out. The sport was never just about the cars. It was about the stories behind them. And once the world saw those stories, everyone wanted to watch.